must express my sincerest appreciation for the warm welcome you've given to myself and my delegation. I must say, I've passed here, God knows how many times, hundreds of thousands of times. It's the first time I've entered these premises. And when I met Edward, I said, God lives here. I saw the beauty of the premises, the peaceful nature, the cleanliness, the order. I said, God must certainly live here. So I'm happy, to have finally come in here and to meet pleasant people like you. He said, we are consulting with key stakeholders. We've met many religious groups, the Federation of Muslim Councils, the Catholic bishops, the Ghana Pentecostal and Charismatic Council, the Christian Council, and so on and so forth. And we said, look, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is a key stakeholder when it comes to the religious communities. And so we must come here and meet with you too, and interact with you, tell you a few things that are on the top of our minds, and also hear if you have any things to share with us. And so that is the main reason for our coming here. We've ended a critical year, which is the year 2020. And as you know, in the Ghanaian Constitution, democracy is based on a multi-party platform. And so there are two major parties in Ghana, the New Patriotic Party and the National Democratic Congress, which we represent. We were in government until 2016. We did our best for God and country. We lost the last election. We peacefully handed over. And we believe that that is the way it should be. Ghana should be a model of democracy. And so we continue to improve our democracy, as we go along. We've had 7 elections, and we're going to the next one. They have all been peaceful, very well contested. I mean, you find a lot of heat, a lot of argument, a lot of tension, but eventually we get it right. And so I said, we'll meet today, we'll tell you a few things. You probably will be following the media, you'll be hearing a lot of things, but you probably wouldn't get the perspective from which, these arguments are being made. Right. And that's why we said we'll discuss a few things to do with the run-up to the elections and a few other issues that are of interest. And so for the first time in the run-up to the 2012 election, we came up with a biometric register. We had introduced transparent ballot boxes. We had introduced photo ID cards. Then we eventually came to biometrics. So Ghana has been the model for electoral, success and, transparent elections. But it's not been without debate, and we get better with every election. So we believe that we should be improving things. In 2012, we came up with a new register. And we normally do a new register after a population census, because then you know exactly what the population projections are. And so there was a population census in 2010, and then in 2011 we started the process of drawing up a new register. In 2012 we introduced it, and we used it for the election. It went quite well. Data is not something that you discard, I mean, you have data, it's useful, you keep the data, and then you keep upgrading and adding to it. Unfortunately, in the run-up, we used the same register for 2016, worked perfectly. It led to a change in government, and the president won based on the same register. Then suddenly, in the run-up to the 2020 election, it says, I want to change the register. Why do you want to change it? First it was about the hardware. It's unserviceable, it will cost us too much to replace the hardware. Then next it was about the data itself. There are too many dead people on the register, and so on and so forth. And you just can't see where the argument sits. And we said, no, you cannot change the register like that just because you want to. 2020, we're supposed to have another census. So let's have the census, and after the census, we'll have the precise population statistics. And then based on that, we can do a new register. We've done everything. Electoral Commission says, no, we're going to introduce a new register. Now, there are all kinds of speculation. One is that, people are interested in the procurement part of it and all that. People have interest and all that. I don't have any proof, but the dogged determination to introduce it is a bit worrying. Second is that, wants to introduce it so that there can be voter suppression in the areas that are not the stronghold of government. So there is quite a lot of, controversy surrounding it. And one of the issues that we are concerned about is that this has been a very peaceful country. And Ghana is recognized as an oasis of peace in the whole sub-region. And we don't want any turmoil that would destroy that reputation and create, disorder in this country. Our party is a party of peace. My former boss, President Mills of blessed memory, was called Asumdwehene. Asumdwehene in our language means a man of peace, the chief of peace. And he was a person who, really consolidated, the peace of this country. And as his apostle, and having worked with him as his vice president, I continue the tradition of opening this country to everybody, no matter your political affiliation or anything. We believe that if this country must move forward, the opportunities must be open to everybody, no matter your ethnic or political or religious affiliation. And so we have continued that, and we don't want anything to reverse, that situation. Unfortunately, if you look at the timetable for introducing the new register, and it's dangerous when you introduce a register in the year of an election, because you need to pilot, test run. You might think you've covered all bases, but on the day when you deploy, you will find that there might be problems. In 2012, when we introduced the new software, biometric software for the new register, the election had to go for 2 days, because in many places they were not conversant with using the biometric verification machines. And so many people put their fingerprints and they were not recognized. Either you needed to change the battery or you needed to moisten the person's fingers in order that the fingerprint could be caught properly. Or if somebody had, greasy fingers and he put his fingers there, the next person who comes will not be able to capture his fingerprints. So we went through a learning curve. And so 2016 was much better. It went faultlessly, everything worked well. Suddenly you say you want to discard all that and introduce new equipment. And so that has become a bone of contention, and we thought that we should let you understand the perspective from which we are coming, that we are a party of peace. We don't want anything that will disturb the peace of this country. And so we said, look, we don't need a new register. You've seen the manifestations and so on and so forth. And we're waiting to see what the final word is. The Eminent Advisory Committee met us, and they're going to consult with the EC again and come back with a final word, and based on that, we'll all decide what to do. But I just wanted to draw your attention that this is a ticking time bomb, and if on the day we go and the equipment doesn't work, there could be, confusion in this country. So that's the first issue. Since this president came into office, in the last election, there were the use of what we call vigilantes. And as president, I got national security reports about training of people in how to handle arms and close combat and things like that. And in our investigations, we found 2 people who had entered the country and were conducting that training. We arrested them, we interrogated them. And apparently they had been brought into the country by the opposition party. And so, of course, after interrogating them, we deported them back to their country of origin, South Africa. But then, in the course of the election, there were all these people in black T-shirts, some call themselves Delta Forces, Invisible Forces, all kinds of forces all over the place. There are a few issues, and I'll use that to wrap up, about the economy and the financial sector. We encourage investment by Ghanaians in the financial sector because we realized that all the major financial institutions were owned by foreign entities. And so you had the Barclays, you had Stanchart, Stanbic, Ecobank, and all of them. And so in our period, we tried to promote investment in that sector. And so we got some Ghanaians who put in some money and set up banks. And of course, these are indigenous banks and smaller banks. And they were lending to the riskier end of the market, that is the SMEs. The big banks are not good at lending to the SMEs, but these banks filled that space. Some were savings and loans companies, some were microfinance. And when you're working at the riskier end of the market, I mean, certainly you can get buffeted by bad debt and things like that. But they had done well in terms of financing. I mean, short credits to clear goods from the port, short credits to bring things from, import things from outside, short credits to produce internally and all that. And then one of the good roles they played was for government suppliers and government contractors. It was an easy place to go with your contract award and say, look, I've got this contract from government to supply this. I need a short, term credit to be able to fulfill it. And the government will pay the check in our joint names so that then they're always able to recover what they have. And so this happened a lot, road contractors, building contractors, everybody. And then a new government comes in and says that we're suspending all contracts, we're suspending all payments because we want to investigate these payments. And so there are outstanding payments to government contractors of almost 6 billion CDs. At the same time, government says we're going to clean out the financial sector. And so you must increase your capital reserve to 400 million, if not, we'll shut you down. The posturing of government and the utterances of government officials creates a panic that, look, they're going to close down these banks. And so before the banks were closed down, one of the owners of the banks, who happens to be a friend, he said, I don't know what is happening. Anytime we open the doors of the bank, everybody's coming to take out money. Nobody is depositing. Of course, because of the signal government had given. So they met with the Minister of Finance and they said, okay, well, you say we should increase our capital reserve to 400 million. We have this list of people who owe us, who have done work for government and are waiting for payment. Can you pay them so that we can increase our liquidity? He says, no, that is a contract between us and them. It has nothing to do with you. We have no contract with you. You must increase your reserve or else we'll close you. And so, even before the time given, government announces the closure of several banks. Some of them don't have a liquidity crisis. Some of them were healthy banks. They didn't have, any debt distress or anything. And still government closed them down. And so you begin to wonder, why, did that happen? And it's created a little bad taste that maybe they were closed down because they don't have the right political color. There are some banks that were closed down that were in a healthier state than some banks that exist today that were not closed down. But because they had the right political color, they were not closed down, and they are being handled under what they call the Ghana Amalgamated Trust to build them out. And so we say, well, if you are even-handed, you must have sieved through and look at the banks that are healthy, and then the banks that could be bailed out. And then, of course, those that couldn't be bailed out, you could just say, look, we're shutting you down. Unfortunately, it was not done even-handedly. And so it's created all kinds of strictures in the economy. So there's a summary of some of the most critical things. There are many other things that I could talk about, but I'll just use this as the introduction, and then we'll open the interaction. And after that, if there are any other issues to be discussed, I'll be very happy to come in.
Before we have the discussion, we want you to know that the church sees itself as a good citizen of any nation in which we're in. We want to be a contributor. Today, you're not going to hear us asking you to give us things. What we want to do is give as a church. We want to be a net contributor to the vast wealth, and I'm not speaking of money alone. I'm talking about the human capital here. You have marvelous, I love the people here. And we can help your people in both economic and spiritual ways to draw closer to God and do better in their lives and be law-abiding, good citizens that'll bring about a strong nation.